Here's a great technique using the BYROW function. Okay, here's the scenario. I want to look up somebody's email address and bring back their department. Now, if this was a simple single column, so equals X lookup, look up the person's name, comma, in the column they're in, comma, bring back the department. That's it. Press enter. Too easy. Okay, Lars one is in HR. Okay, super simple. But what if you're not sure, or basically Lars could be in any of these columns? So if I change this to say, let's look for Sam Paul. Well, Sam Paul doesn't exist in this column. So could I, rather than just referring to email 3, okay, could I refer to all these 4 columns? So email 1 to email 4. Press enter. No. Let's look at how I solved this, and ultimately we'll end up turning it into a little lambda. So we can do AA 2D lookup, pick the person you're looking up, comma, highlight the range where all the potential values are, comma, and return the result column. Enter. Beautiful. Sam is in finance, and if I change this to Owen, Owen is in sales, and this is all working. All right, I'll show you how I built it. Let's go. So before we get started, big shout out to a couple of people. Firstly, MVP, Owen Price. Okay, there's Owen. Just was answering another question I needed some help with, and he came up with mentioned BYROW, which got me interested. And then that same day, Paulie the Polar Bear, okay, on Reddit, answered a question using this BYROW technique. Okay, so good shout, folks. And I thought, wow, both of those scenarios really helpful. BYROW, let's do a video. Okay, so let's start off. So Imogen, okay, is in sales. Now, when I first tried to solve this problem, I tried to think about it in an XLOOKUP way. So what I sort of attempted to do was, if you're familiar with unpivoting, I tried to unpivot this column, and then I had one column of departments and one column of emails, and then did some fancy stuff with that. It worked, it was great, okay, but the code was quite long. And then BYROW, okay, in a different approach, filter and BYROW, great approach. So what do I mean? Well, let's just check this out. We could start with this, okay, equals, try and find Imogen, equals, and then highlight the range you're after, and press enter. And you get a bunch of falses and one true. Okay? So what I want to be able to do is filter this column if true exists in that row. That's the thought process, and that's the hardest piece of this to some extent, plus some other nice little tips and knowing BYROW. Okay, so if true is any of these, I want it to return a true. So my first approach would be to wrap this in an OR. Okay, so of any of those things true, and then I press enter, expecting to see a false, true, false. But that's not how OR works, okay? OR works on the entire array. So if I get rid of that and get rid of that, just to come back here, OR is saying, hey, if any of these are true, if that's true, or that's true, or that's true, or that's true, okay, then put true. Not what I want. And that's where BYROW comes in. The array is this array I've got here, okay? And the function, Okay, there's a few listed here, but you can just put or on the end, which I never knew, and press enter. And that's what we're after. Okay. So this is the nice little true-false list that we can use for filtering. If you saw one of my previous videos, you'll know about this. You can filter a column based on trues and falses. So let me just do it separately. Equals filter, okay, this column based on this hash. Sales, because it goes down this column and says sales is true. So it brings back sales. So really what I can do is come in here and say filter, all right, this department column, comma, and then put a bracket on the end. And we're good. Okay, so if I change this, let me go and grab Lars. Now we're expecting HR to show up as the answer. So right click, paste values. There we go. Okay, pretty cool. Right, let's neaten this up. You know, that might be all you need. Job done. But let's use a let function. Let's turn it into a lambda. And also, I want to handle this scenario on bigger lists where somebody selects a cell to look up, but the range department, let me say this, where somebody doesn't pick matching numbers, so they only highlight maybe those two. Okay, oh sorry, needs to be a comma in there. And they're wondering why they did it. I want a warning message to say inconsistent row number or row count doesn't match. Okay, undo that. All right, so let's sort of simplify this or parameterize it with a let, and then we'll turn that into a lambda. So Alt Enter, let, open the bracket, Alt Enter. Okay, so lookup value, comma, is going to be cell B8. I could have just clicked on it, comma, Alt Enter. Lookup range is, comma, is going to be this range here, comma, Alt Enter, and return range or return column, whichever you fancy the name of, is going to be table 2 department, comma, and then all I'm going to do is say underscore result is going to be this. I don't have to do this little underscore result bit, but I'm going to change this to, okay, this is going to be called return range. B8 is going to be the lookup value. And this is going to be the lookup range, comma, all. Okay, comma on the end, Alt Enter, return at the end of it, spit out the result, close the bracket. All right, potentially you can just stop there. Okay, that's it. However, I want to take it a little step further, just take a few more minutes. So I want to double check that people have selected, the user has selected the same number of rows in that range as they have in the return range. Otherwise you get a bit of a, you get a value error because the row count doesn't match. And then I want to turn it into a lambda so I can reuse it. So here we go. I'm going to go in here. I am going to, so just before the result, I'm going to add my little check. So Alt Enter. So check, this is going to be another parameter, check rows match. Okay, simply that the rows in lookup range equals the rows in the, return range. Okay. And then at the end, the nice thing about putting this result out separately is that I can say if check rows match, which is a true or a false. So if it's true, comma, give me the result. Otherwise, otherwise, give me a little warning like rows must match. Okay, Alt-Enter, close the let. So now, if in this range, let's say I highlighted for department, I highlighted four rows by mistake and pressed Enter, it gives me a warning, rows must match. Okay, so I can come back in here and say, oh yeah, look, I went one too many. I just want that many. Perfect. Oh, one more thing I just realized, I need to show you one other thing. What if there's not a match? So, for example, I've just realized that this isn't spelt right. So I come in here, com.com, okay, press Enter, and now this doesn't work. It says calc. You don't want that. You want no match. So what you do is go into the formula, okay, and it's the filter is basically returning an error because there's no matches. And it's really simple to fix because the filter function, okay, after the or bracket has an if empty clause. So you can just put in, you know, no match. Press Enter. Great. Okay, much better. And then if I fix this up, get rid of the A off the end, Lars is in HR. And now finally, let's turn this into a Lambda so that I can reuse it in lots of different workbooks, etc. So I'm just going to put, or one way you can do this is replace the Lambda, the let, okay, with a Lambda. And then after the last input parameter, so lookup, those are the three inputs, okay, Alt-Enter, then put your let in there. And also you don't need these three elements. You just need the lookup value. Okay, I'm going to delete that. Lookup range. Okay, so those are your three inputs. You're going to click on the cells. And if I close the bracket on the end, you get a calc error because I'm not passing any parameters into it. So to pass parameters in, just temporarily, I'll show you how to save this in a second, just to check it's working. Open the bracket and then go and click on lookup value, which is that cell, comma, then lookup range, which is those cells, comma, and then return range. So these are the three, those are like three placeholders. Close the bracket on the end, press Enter, and it's working, okay? So get rid of the stuff off the end. Make sure you do this carefully. All right. Highlight, Control C, including the equal sign. Go into your name manager, formula. Okay. Name manager, or just go straight to define name, to be honest. So define name. Give it a name. This is going to be called AA2D. Lookup 2, because I've already got one. Highlight here, Control V, and click OK. And now I can go equals AA2D, lookup 2. And see, it's asking for a lookup value, comma, a lookup range, comma, and the return range. Beautiful. If you are going to be writing Lambdas, I would encourage you to install via Home Add-ins, okay, on the Home ribbon, the Excel Labs utility, because if I click on this, here's my formula. That's the one I had, I've just jumped back a step. Here's it before creating the Lambda. And I can basically format, it's a much nicer user interface. But also, if I copy that code and let's go to names, Okay, functions, we'll just add a new function. Let's call this, AA2D. Give it a description, 2D lookup. Okay, I'm just going to paste my formula, my arguments in here. Paste the whole formula in here. I can just simply double click, Control C, paste. Control C, paste. Control C, paste. This is a much nicer way of writing lambdas. Okay, and then I can get rid of those 3 inputs. All right, so that's basically my formula now. And rather than going into the name manager, which is fiddly, I can just click Done. Okay, and now equals AA2D, that's the one I just wrote, is there ready for me to use. And I really wouldn't want to go into the name manager to edit this formula. So I would say if you're going to be using lambdas, this Excel Labs, pretty critical. Okay, I can't imagine myself using it without this. Awesome. And also, if you want to import or save your lambdas, so you can save all your lambdas to import into each future workbook, you can actually set up a GitHub gist. I've mentioned this before in other videos. So let me just use my autocorrect. So this is my gist. Okay, let me open it up. Here we go. You can sign up. This is free. Okay, you can sign up to GitHub and create a gist. I'll put a link in the show notes below, the video that talks about setting this up. It's just a few clicks. So here's all my lambdas. So this code, okay, which again I'll put in the description, you can simply go into your workbook, okay, go modules, workbook, click on that, the little cloud symbol, paste that URL in, import it, and then all these lambdas, including the one we just created. Okay, there we go, AA2D lookup. I added that earlier. So that's in there as well. Perfect. All right. Look, hope you enjoy this. Hope you find this useful. I think the use of BYROW, pretty cool. Oh, one more thing. Check this out. Another use case for BYROW. Let's say I turn these into just a little list. Okay, to col. I don't want the zeros, so round bracket, comma, ignore blanks. Close the bracket. Okay, let's say I've got my equals AA2D lookup, and I'm looking up this array of values, comma, in this range, comma, and bringing back this, close the bracket, press enter, it doesn't spill down, okay? So what do? Well, this is where BYROW comes in. Because it only returns a single value, this function, you can use BYROW. And it's a bit weird, okay? So BYROW, pass the array in, comma, and then it's asking for a function. Now, this is where, you just got to remember this. You've got to put a lambda there. And I want to pass each row of the array, or each element of the array. So you can put a little letter or a placeholder like X, or C for cell, or R for row, or the word row. It doesn't matter, okay? It's just each element. Let's call it C, okay, for each cell, okay? And then I want to do my lookup, but the value I'm looking up isn't B11 anymore, okay? It's C. Okay. Close the bracket on the end for the lambda, press enter, and then your lambda spills. Bit of a weird one, but it works. Okay, so check out a couple of other videos about lambdas. The divide one has a sort of breakdown about the gist and stuff like this. What do you think? BYROW, have you used it? Are you using it for things? Do you find that useful? I'm really getting into the Lambdas, seeing lots of different use cases, and that sort of let by row, that type of functionality. It's pretty awesome. All right, catch you in the next video.